Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 13 deadline decisions where I'll discuss your final questions and dilemmas ahead of the Game Week 13 deadline, including a wildcard draft, my latest free hit draft, key transfers that you should or shouldn't make, captaincy, benching decisions and much more. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, famous last words, but I'm going to try and keep this video a little bit shorter and a little bit snappier than usual because I've already uploaded today. It is a Friday afternoon and I do not want to waste too much of your time. And I know a lot of people this week are either wildcarding or free hitting anyway. There'll be drafts for both of those at the end of the video. So there are maybe a few less questions about transfers, but don't worry. If you're not playing a chip this week, I still have you covered. So let's go through the press and injury updates as of Friday afternoon at 3 PM UK time. Firstly, on Semenyo, Iraola said that he's been doing modified training with the team in previous days. So if everything goes well today, Friday, he's going to be available for tomorrow, yes. So I would expect Semenyo to be available. There were suggestions it was an injury, then it was illness, then it was personal reasons, then it was because he wanted to leave in January. I've heard it all. All of that to say, I think Iraola is a fairly trustworthy manager. And if he says it sounds like he could be available, I'd say he probably will be. Whether you want to take a risk on a free hit, maybe not. Maybe this is a week against Sunderland away anyway. You look to back against him. But if I had him in my team, I probably wouldn't be looking to sell unless there was a player that I was desperately looking to move to instead. So my opinion is he probably does start, but I can't confirm that. Cliver is not expected to be fit, but apparently he is close in case anyone was looking there, or you were trying to predict the Bournemouth attack in case someone like a Krupi could get some decent minutes once again. On Nottingham Forest, and mainly on Gibbs White, who was a player that I actually was really tempted to take a punt on. And I just think I don't want to take the risk because in a lot of my free hit drafts, if I do free hit, which I'm starting to lean towards doing, my bench is pretty weak, but it sounds like Gibbs White could be available. Now, Sean Dyche has not had a press conference on Friday, but after their game on Thursday in Europe, he did speak on Gibbs White, and he said, we're not expecting it's too serious, and it's settling down already, so we're hopeful that it will be all right for the weekend. So Semenyo and Gibbs White have both had very similar updates of, we're expecting them to be okay, as long as they have no issues on Friday, Saturday. So I would imagine, given how important he is, and also I believe it's the first time in his career that he's scored in 3 consecutive games, I reckon Gibbs White probably does start based on what Dyche said. And again, Dyche is the kind of manager you feel like you can trust. Normally he says touch and go. On this occasion, he's pretty much given him all the all clear. On Chelsea, Maresca said, believe it or not, that Cole Palmer's back. And apparently, not only is Cole Palmer available to play, but he confirmed both. And the question was, is he ready to play and start? And Maresca said yes to both. So we could see Cole Palmer starting against Arsenal. And all of a sudden, we see Cole Palmer becoming a real FPL asset again. And I know before the injury, he wasn't really at it. He wasn't worth the money. But we know what Cole Palmer can do. And maybe now that he's had a rest mentally, physically, got over this injury, maybe he'll come back with a bang. So all eyes on that. And it'll be very interesting to see if he does start, how Chelsea look, how does he combine with the likes of Enzo, Esteval, Neto, and just even João Pedro as well. How does that affect the team? And can Arsenal still keep them out? So I'm excited from a footballing perspective to watch that, and we'll see what impact that has on FPL. Trossard obviously went off midweek with a small knock, and apparently, as per any of Arteta's pressers, there wasn't much of an update, but he said that he will be having a test again, and he could be available for Game Week 13. So, doesn't sound like the Trossard injury is really serious. I still think that if you've got someone like Eze, by the way, I think even if Trossard was fit and available, Eze's just playing at such a high level right now. Saka always starts, so I don't think this affects FPL too much. On Crystal Palace, if you saw Gay came off at half-time and Richards came on at half-time, Glasner confirmed that that was a pre-planned substitution because they wanted to manage both Gay and Richards. So they gave him a half each. So don't stress about Richards. Don't stress about Gay. They are both available for Game Week 13. As to whether they will play all of the minutes coming up, as to whether they'll play Game Week 14 midweek, maybe we'll discuss that ahead of the Game Week 14 deadline. But right now, I'd be feeling pretty happy at least about my Crystal Palace defenders. On Manchester United, Sesko, Cunha and Maguire are all set to miss Game Week 13. Apparently, Sesko's injury is worse than first feared. And also, Cunha could be back for Game Week 14. I've seen suggestions it was just concussion protocol, which is usually 10 days, which would mean he misses this, and he'll be back for the game midweek on Thursday. So if you've got Cunha, and you're not free hitting, I probably wouldn't sell him. I'd want him because I still think he's a really nice asset to own from Game Week 14 onwards. On Nick Pope and not Arsenal, Newcastle, I'm a little bit worried about this because if I do free hit this week, fine, but I have Nick Pope in my team. And it does look like, as of right now, he's very close to losing his place. I've spoken to a Newcastle fan. They said they wouldn't be surprised if he is benched this week. And actually, Eddie Howe was asked about Nick Pope versus Ramsdale. He said, all options are on the table. I need to think long and hard about who I pick, and I will try to do that on merit. If it's based on merit, he probably does drop Nick Pope. I mean, he's made so many mistakes recently. And I'm not saying that Ramsdale is not mistake prone. Like, he does make his fair share of mistakes as well, but he probably does deserve a chance. And Nick Pope, like, every week it's like a little mistake here and there. Or maybe even not a mistake, but he should have done better for that goal. So I know that Eddie Howe loves Nick Pope, but I am slightly worried at this point. Definitely don't include him on a free hit. Definitely don't look to buy him. And maybe we'll have to look to sell him soon, especially with the fixtures not looking perfect either. And then finally, this was from the Thursday press conferences, but Arne Slot said that Hugo Ekitike's injury shouldn't be a big issue. He didn't comment on whether he'd be available. Let's see what we get today in terms of training pictures. You might still want to take a punt on Isak. I still think Gakpo's minutes will be good. And maybe you even want to have a punt on Ekitike. I probably wouldn't go for the striker position. I'd probably be looking at Gakpo, Szoboszlai, Salah, if you even want Liverpool assets. But just to note that Ekitike's injury, according to Slot, isn't long-term. So I think that's the key updates as of Friday. Let's now get on to answering some of your key questions, benching, captaincy, chips, and more. So for those of you that are making transfers, and maybe even if you're playing a free hit or wildcard, this is still probably a section worth watching because I'm going to talk about some of the key assets you should be targeting. But these were the key transfers that you were considering that you wanted my opinion on. So Senesi to O'Reilly, Virgil van Dijk to O'Reilly, Sarr to one of Doku or Rodgers, Ndiaye to Foden or Gakpo, Mateta to Thiago, and Voltemada to Thiago as well. So would I make these transfers? As always, I've gone for like a traffic light colour system where yellow means I don't mind it, orange means probably not, green means I would, and normally red means I would not. There are none of these that I particularly hate for this week or would tell you not to do so. In terms of the defender transfers, the man on the thumbnail, I would go as far as saying I think the best transfer in this week, if not Thiago, is probably Nico O'Reilly. I think he's the best defender to buy at the moment at his price. And therefore, I can't really, even though I think Senesi's a great asset to hold long term, and I actually don't think Van Dijk's as bad as people are suggesting. I don't think Liverpool are great defensively. He is very expensive, but great in the air, good for DEFCON, and Liverpool will still keep clean sheets this season. But all of that to say, I think O'Reilly's better. So I can't say that these are bad transfers when I would rather have O'Reilly. Now, can I promise you that O'Reilly's going to start every game? No, this is Man City. This is Pep Guardiola. And you could give O'Reilly 12 90 minutes in a row, him look perfectly fit, on fire, scoring a hat-trick a game, and I still wouldn't feel confident that Pep would play him every single game. But with Aït-Nouri off to AFCON, with Gvardiol being very capable at centre-back, and also Man City always having centre-back issues, and with the level that he's performing at, I think O'Reilly will start pretty much every game over the next 8 to 10. He might miss one. I suppose he could miss two, but the upside is probably worth it if you look at his data, eye test, touch map. Like, he's just looking really good at his price. So I really like the idea of bringing O'Reilly in this week. Senesi, again, I like, but I'd prefer O'Reilly. Van Dijk, the reason I might say I don't mind this is just the price. Like, you save money and you're arguably getting a better asset. Someone asked about, not Joachim, I keep saying Joachim Anderson. Someone Danish said it's actually Joachim. So sorry, Joachim Anderson to O'Reilly. I like all of those transfers. So I don't think there is anyone apart from Gabriel or maybe like a Pedro Porro or Van der Ven or someone like that, where I would say, yeah, I would absolutely sell them for Nico O'Reilly this week. But even if it's a decent defender, if you've got the free transfers, and I guess that's the key thing, like if this is your only free transfer, maybe slightly less of a fan. If you're sat there with like 3 or 4 free transfers, we're going to get topped up to 5 between game 15 and 16. Why not do it? The only one that I don't love on this list is selling Ismail Assar for Doku or Rodgers. This is a couple of reasons for this, right? I know Sarr's going to go off to AFCON, and I know that he has not been demonstrating the output that we would want in the league, and he keeps putting out great data, and also Crystal Palace have a lot of games. Like, you could definitely list a few reasons to sell him, but I like the next 3 games, and I'm actually at the moment, we'll look at my free hit draft at the end. At the moment, Sarr is on my free hit draft. I think he's actually really good for this week. And also, I just have issues with Doku and Rodgers. On Doku, I think he has been exceptional. I think top 5 wingers in the Premier League this season in terms of football. His minutes have been brilliant. I don't see him getting dropped because Marmoush is off to AFCON and other players that you could play in that position just aren't really doing it in terms of on the wings, right? Like, I think they play Bernardo Silva out there. You've got Bob, but mainly on the right. You can play Foden out there. They're just... I'm looking at it right now, and I just don't see him getting dropped on a regular basis. So he might get rested once, maybe twice. But in a similar way to O'Reilly, I think Doku starts pretty much every game for Manchester City. I think I'm forgetting about one or two wingers for them. But regardless, I think his minutes are really strong. But he's got basically no goal threat so far this season. I'm not saying he can't score a goal. Of course he can. But he's down at like 0.14, 0.15 expected goals. His assist threat is brilliant, but you feel like you want more than assists. So I like Doku. He's just probably not better than Sarr for me. And on Morgan Rogers, this week, yeah, do you know what? I might prefer Morgan Rogers this week. But then next week, I'd want Sarr. And I just think that there isn't enough of an upgrade there for me to justify it. So, no, I probably wouldn't do Sarr to Doku or Rogers, but I'm not going to put you off of it massively. The main reason being, Crystal Palace are playing tons of games. Maybe in the midweek fixture, Sarr's minutes could be reduced. And also, he's off to AFCON around game week 16 anyway, so you are going to have to sell him at some point. Speaking of players that are off to AFCON, obviously, Iliman Ndiaye. I don't mind selling him, and I think specifically for this set of transfers, because it's Foden and Gakpo was the question that I got. Would you sell Ndiaye for Foden or Gakpo? I almost put this as green. The only reason I didn't say this is an absolutely I would is I really love Iliman Ndiaye. Like, I've got a bit of a soft spot for him. I think he's a brilliant footballer, and he's on penalties. He's got a home fixture this week, and also Newcastle have been rubbish away from home this season. I wouldn't be surprised if Ndiaye does something this week, but I would 100% for the next 3 to 4 weeks prefer Foden and Gakpo. And then again, in 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to lose Ndiaye to AFCON anyway. So I don't think this is a transfer you'll massively regret, unless Foden or Gakpo's minutes are reduced. But I think both of them, I reckon people are underestimating the amount of minutes Foden and Gakpo will get. I think they're both feeling pretty nailed on. So, yeah, basically all of that to say, you're going to sell Sarr and Ndiaye soon anyway. If you want to move the transfer forward a bit, I get it. Of course, because they're more expensive as well, I do prefer Foden and Gakpo to the likes of Doku and Rogers. The final two transfers then is just, would I sell Mateta or Ultimada to Thiago? I think Ultimada's a fine asset, and this week again, I could see him doing okay, but Thiago is better for me over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and he's cheaper. And I think specifically in game week 13 this week, and then in game week 16 when he's got Leeds at home, they're two great games. So I think you're getting a slightly better asset for a cheaper price, which should give you the funds to go and spend elsewhere. So I think this is a move you're going to want to make at some point. Why not do it in the week where Thiago's got Burnley at home? So I don't mind this. But maybe, again, if you've got limited transfers, you think Ultimada's fine, you're not that convinced by Brentford against Burnley, you could leave it. And then on Mateta to Thiago, I was going back and forth between yellow and orange. I don't love this transfer, but Mateta's minutes have been pretty poor. His output, actually, in the last 3 or 4 games has dropped off a bit. And I just think over this period, with Nketiah fit, as long as he stays fit, Mateta is going to keep getting early subs. So again, it's one of those where I don't know that Thiago is better than Mateta, but is he better value if that money can be spent elsewhere? Probably. So there we go. I think definitely the players I'd be targeting this week, O'Reilly and Thiago would be the main two. And I do also really like Foden and Gakpo's transfers in. Hopefully that's helped. Let me know if there are any other transfers that you're considering. So guys, let's briefly discuss benching decisions, because once again, for those on free hit, it's probably not a major decision for you this week because you just won't create the benching headache for yourself, or you'll at least probably have a clear order or ranking on your players. But for those that don't, I think there are some benching decisions to be made, because you've got a lot of players like, I've got Iliman Ndiaye and Minter as two examples, maybe even Declan Rice, where they're good assets, like you really do like them, but none of them have standout fixtures. Ndiaye against Newcastle, who are good, but it's at home, don't mind it. Minter playing Forest, who have looked better away from home, but he's a great asset. Declan Rice, obviously this week against Chelsea away, but he has been exceptional recently on set pieces, could get DEFCON. So it is tough. I think a lot of these assets, I would still play ahead of the defenders, and I do wonder if I am struggling to adapt to the new meta, formula, template, whatever you want to call it, in FPL, which is playing defenders. Because I've got Ndiaye, Minter, Kudus, and Rice ahead of the likes of Timber, Van Dijk, Senesi, Tarkowski, Richards, and other people will think that's bonkers. And I've looked at a lot of like the models and algorithms in FPL, and they have the defenders ahead of the attackers. And I do think if we're looking at floor right now, DEFCON defenders have a higher floor than attackers. Like, let's use someone like Minter as an example. He could easily go and get a 2. I would say it's probably quite unlikely that Senesi gets a 2 this week. I would say he probably gets a 4. Could get more than that. Even if he concedes a couple of goals, he probably gets 3. So immediately these defenders, when you're looking like projected points or average points, they will just have higher probably projected points. I still love chasing the upside of an attacker that I think is good. And I think Ndiaye Minter Kudus. Like, these are players that have the ability to go and get multiple returns. I quite like the idea of still starting them. So that's just a personal preference thing to me. All of that to say, I think a 4 at the back could work well this week. So I've got a lot of those attackers up there. Obviously, Munoz, Timber, I think are quite high up. I've got Van Dijk quite high up here. I still think against West Ham, who are susceptible to conceding from set pieces, I reckon Van Dijk will get a chance to score a headed goal. He's great for DEFCON, and you can't sit here and tell me that there's no chance Liverpool keep a clean sheet against West Ham. I think the bookies have it at about a 30% chance, which is about decent enough to at least think that there's a chance for a clean sheet. So that's a personal preference thing as well. Then there are always the decisions around like you've got Senesi, Richards, and Anderson. Those three I get asked a lot about every single week. Also, people asking about Mukiele this week. Again, this is just a bit of a personal preference thing, but I think Sunderland are quite a blunt attack in comparison to a lot of others. So I think I would have Senesi ahead of the Crystal Palace defenders that aren't Munoz, and also Anderson as well. So I would have him a little bit higher. In terms of then Anderson versus Mukiele, that was another one I was getting quite a lot. I think I'd back the home fixture, but I also think that Spurs could be a little bit frustrated by Fulham, who overall this season haven't been a bad defence. So if you've got Joachim Anderson, I don't mind starting him this week, even though Spurs away on paper would be the fixture that you'd normally avoid. So you can take a glance at this benching sheet yourself. The one player I don't think I've actually put on here is Anderson of Forest. I would have him genuinely like up there, probably ahead of Iliman Ndiaye. So I've had a few people ask me about Elliot Anderson. I've even looked at putting him in on my free hit and leaving myself money in the bank. Like, I think he is genuinely probably top 8 to 10 midfielders for this week. So I would not be benching Elliot Anderson. I think even if Gibbs White's fit, I think he's great. If Gibbs White isn't fit, he might play slightly more advanced, could be on penalties. Like, there's a lot to like about him. And I love the home fixture, and I love the way that Forest are playing too. So I'll leave it there. Hope that's helpful for your benching decisions. At the end of the day, as always, trust your gut feeling. So guys, let's discuss captaincy. And I was tempted not to do the section this week because I do it basically every single week, but this week felt silly almost to do it. However, I thought two things. Firstly, I'd like to discuss triple captaincy briefly. And then secondly, some people play the game for different reasons, and I'd like to at least briefly mention other options that you could consider. And you never know what can happen in football in FPL, but would I captain Haaland this week? Without a shadow of a doubt. Like, there are some weeks where I'm at least confident, but I'll consider other options. I have not for half a second considered captaining anyone else other than Erling Haaland. He has by far and away the best data on this. It's 1.09 on Pen XGI. His projected points at Fantasy Football Hub is 8.6. His spread X projected goals is over 1. Getting projected over 1 goal is bonkers. Like, Thiago against Burnley at home, which is about as good as you can get for a striker on pens with great minutes, is 0.62. And his percentage chance of scoring a goal is 64%. It doesn't get much better than that in terms of projections. And that's obviously not always the way that the football goes. But for me, I would not consider anyone else. And therefore, if you are not free hitting this week, I would triple captain. People keep pointing to game week 17. And on paper, without Juve, without Wan-Bissaka, who will both be at AFCON at that point, Haaland against West Ham at home could be good. Is Haaland fit in game week 17? Who knows? What if Haaland blanks in the next 3 games and looks rubbish? It's possible. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, because I'll probably captain him in a lot of them. But you get what I mean? Like, I know right now, Haaland is still getting so many chances every single week. Even midweek when he came on in the 65th minute, he still had 0.41 XG and missed a big chance. Like, he is accumulating so many chances right now. Leeds across the last 4 are the 5th worst defence in the league. They've dropped off quite a bit in terms of defensive solidity, and it's at home. I just think everything right now, like City's entire attack other than Rodri and Kovacic are fit, it's all pointing to me towards not only Haaland being the best captain, but I think he's the best triple captain. If you're not free hitting, of course. And that's the decision you need to make yourself. Let's say very briefly then that you either don't want to captain Haaland because you don't believe he's great, or you just play for some kind of other reason where you've got a rule in your mini league, or you just think, do you know what? I don't want to captain a player that I don't even care if they score. I want to risk it, which is fine. I would still go Salah. And I know people hate this. Like, I've included Salah in my free hit drafts, and people who lose their minds, like genuine head loss over the fact that I've included Salah. That's okay if you don't think so. But I still think historic data is important. I think Salah is in a bad moment. And you could say right now, it will never come back. Salah's at that age now where he's just going to continue declining, fine, if you believe that. But I also think what we've seen from Salah across the last 8 seasons is nothing short of astonishing. He's still on penalties. His minutes are still usually very good. And his data's actually been okay in recent games as well. So I like Salah. If not Salah, it probably is Thiago. Like Burnley at home with a guy that, I mean, Brentford just get penalties for fun. His data's okay. It's actually quite weak in comparison to some of the other players though. So you are relying on Burnley being rubbish or potentially another penalty. The other options that I like are probably midfielders. I like Foden and Saka. Saka just because he's great, Foden for the fixture, both players that could go out there and get you multiple returns. Other options on this list, I've got Jean-Philippe Mateta. His minutes haven't been great, but Man United at home is a really nice fixture. If we're looking at the spread X percentage chance of scoring 1+ goal, he's third on the list after Haaland and Thiago, ahead of Salah, ahead of Saka, ahead of Gakpo, all of these other players. Speaking of Gakpo, if you like Salah as a captaincy option, you should consider other Liverpool assets. And then I've also just snuck Kevin Schade onto the list as well. People will say, what about Rodgers? What about Szoboszlai? What about this player? They're all okay, but Haaland is the best captaincy option. So I'll leave it there because, again, I don't want to waste your time in this video. I would strongly advise captaining Haaland. I'd strongly advise triple captaining if you're not playing another chip, but I can also understand why you would want to save the triple captain for Game Week 17 instead. Since starting creating content like 5 years ago on YouTube, I think this is the week where I've had the most upset messages, the highest quantity of upset messages about not including a wildcard draft in my content. So two things. Sorry to everyone that's wildcarding that has been so upset. Like genuinely, like I mean over 20 DMs and comments about just people just gutted that I've ignored the wildcard and I'm not talking about it. So firstly, I'm sorry. Secondly, I never do that midweek. If you've watched my content for a while, I will usually include a free hit and wildcard in this video. So if you're watching now and you wildcard in a future week, know that I will cover it. And for those of you that have been waiting, hopefully this is helpful. So what would I go for in a Game Week 13 wildcard? I would still go double Arsenal defence. And I know this is a bit risky because you're then blocking yourself from other attackers, like if I want to go for a Madueke, an Eze, a Declan Rice in the future, but they're just so elite. And I've gone back and forth on Raya. I thought he wasn't worth it. Then I think he's brilliant. Then I think he's terrible value. It just feels pretty safe. You could, by all means, go for a Verbruggen or Petrovic and save a lot of money. And I did that at first, but then I just felt like I didn't need the money, so I went back for Raya. So I've got Raya and Timber in this draft, and I've got Munoz and Nico O'Reilly. That defense of Raya, Timber, Munoz, O'Reilly, I think is elite. It's exceptional. I don't think you bench them for any games. But then on the bench, I've got Anderson and Rodon. That's mainly because I have them in my own team. You could go Richards and Mukiele or something like that instead. There are various players you could go for. I would make sure you have at least one sort of 4.5 defender, though, just in case for the weeks that you want to play a 4-4-2, you've at least got someone better. I wouldn't go for like 2-4 millions. I'd try and sneak an Anderson or a Richards or a Trufer or someone like that. And if you can get Senesi and if you've got better value than me, that's nice. I've got 0 in the bank for this wildcard draft. So yeah, O'Reilly, Munoz, Timber, great. The midfield 5 excites me so much. This makes me want to play I don't have a wildcard, but this makes me want to play the wildcard. Saka, Anderson, and that is Anderson of Nottingham Forest, Fernandes, Gakpo, and Foden. This midfield for me just has a really nice combination of everything. Saka, I think, is a great long-term asset. Fernandes, same again. Gakpo and Foden are more short-term. And Anderson, I think, is such great value at the moment with the way that he's playing. As I say, it just looks right. It feels right. I don't think there's any major weaknesses there. Of course, there are other assets you could go for, like Morgan Rogers. I've seen people include. You could try and go for a Kevin Schade for more of a short-term pump. There are no Chelsea assets in it, like Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer, could become options in the future. I've got no Palace attackers, by the way, as well, is another comment. But I just think you can't own everyone. And that midfield 5, to me, looks super strong. And then the front 2, I've gone for Haaland and Thiago, which means I do have Guiu as my 8th attacker. Some people won't like that. Some people want a stronger 8th attacker. That's fine. I think if you drop Bruno Fernandes to Cunha, you could upgrade Mark Guiu to a slightly better option. Or you could upgrade both 4th and 5th defender in your team and just put it in a position where if you need to, you can play 5 at the back most weeks. Just go huge at the back. But I just like this team. There's often when I build a wildcard, I'm like, do you know what? I don't care that I don't have a wildcard because I feel like my team is equally as okay. When I built this, I was like, I'm massively off where I'd like to be with my team right now. So if you have the wildcard this week, this is roughly what I'd go for. Also, trust your gut feeling. Also, pick your own players. And again, apologies for the delay. Hopefully that has been helpful. So then, guys, just to finish off with my own team as things stand, if you watched my team selection video earlier, you would have had my thought process around triple captain, free hit, and where my current team is. And so I would advise going and watching that after this if you want a bit more of an in-depth thought process around it. I would say that as of right now, I am 60-40 in favor of the free hit. And I don't mean to keep sitting on the fence, but I am really struggling. But I'm trying to get to a place where I'm at least closer to the decision. And I think right now, if the deadline was now, I would free hit. I could change my mind in the meantime, but that's where I stand right now. And this is the draft that I currently have right now as well. So, to read it out, Kelleher and Dubravka in goal. I don't think Kelleher is by any means the best goalkeeper for this week, but he's cheap, and I have 0 in the bank with this current draft. My back 3 is Cash, Munoz, and O'Reilly. And then I've got Luca Dean on the bench. 2 things to note here, and heaven. I don't know that 3 at the back is the best. I spoke earlier in the benching decisions section about maybe I'm struggling to catch up with the fact that actually a 4 at the back makes sense. I don't have Collins and Vandenberg, who both are capable of scoring headers from set pieces. I could certainly play a 4 at the back. And even with Luca Dean, I could maybe go for a 4 at the back instead. But I still am struggling coming around to that idea when there are so many exciting attackers to pick from. So for now, it's Cash, Munoz, Riley. I think all 3 have really nice upside. It feels good having Munoz in my team, and I think he could do damage against Man United. I actually remember last season, Man United versus Palace. I can't remember if it was home or away, but Palace beat United 2-0. Munoz got 13 points, and I think Mateta scored a brace as well. So I think it was a clean sheet and assist for Munoz and a brace for Mateta. I could see Crystal Palace winning 2-0 with a brace for Mateta or Sarr and an assist for Munoz. I think Crystal Palace will win this game. So it felt weird to not have Crystal Palace assets in there. In terms of my midfield 5, that means that it's Rodgers, Salah, Sharda, Foden, and Ismail Assar. So Rodgers, Salah, Sharda, and Foden have been in pretty much all of my free hit drafts. I think I'd have those 4. Sarr is the one player, right? Because my front 3 is GW, Thiago, Haaland. So Sarr is the one player in this team right now that I'm unsure on. I literally have the exact money, and I'm probably going to have to decide tonight so I don't get priced out of potential players, but I have the exact money to just put Soberslijn instead. Maybe I should do that. Like, Crystal Palace playing a lot of minutes recently. I've already got Munoz in that game. I've only got 1 Liverpool, and I do think Liverpool will beat West Ham quite comfortably. Maybe going for Dominic Soberslijn there's nice. He's got better chance for DEFCON, takes set pieces, had good data recently, and he's a player that I don't have in my original team, so a player that I can just own for a single week and have some fun. If not Sarr or Soberslijn, I've genuinely looked at Anderson. Gives me enough money, by the way, to then go and upgrade Kelleher if I want to. So instead of Kelleher, I could potentially go for Martinez. Then I wouldn't have any Brentford attackers, but it would be probably a better goalkeeper overall. I could also upgrade my bench as well. I could upgrade maybe Guiu to just someone, even like Krupi, someone that might get me. So make a slightly stronger bench and go for Anderson. And I think Anderson is great. I actually said to FPL Pickle earlier, I said, if Anderson was 6.5 million, I think I'd be considering him more. It almost just feels weird putting a 5.3 million asset in your 11, but that shouldn't impact it. I think he's really, really decent. So Anderson's an option. Are there any other players that I've been considering for that spot? If the team structure stays as it is, no. But remember, the other option that I had that I was toying with was actually keeping Mateta in. And so instead of Sarr then going for... we can put Bat in, a 4.3 million midfielder. And then instead of Munoz, I simply just go back to Vandenberg. So this was the other draft. So I guess it's essentially, because then I wanted Kelleher in here, Martinez in here. Sorry, 1 second, Martinez in there. And then I wanted, I think I had to just go for, I think it was a Stev in here or something like that. So basically, let me read that. So it's either Mateta, Vandenberg, and Martinez, essentially, versus Sarr, Munoz, and Kelleher. Sorry, that was really difficult for my brain to do. So Sarr, Munoz, Kelleher versus Martinez, Vandenberg, Mateta. I think that's really close. I've been going back and forth, and I'm just a bit worried about Mateta's minutes, I suppose. But as the penalty taker, Vandenberg good for DEFCON. Martinez probably the better penalty stopper if they do concede a penalty. This gives me double Aston Villa defence, but no Crystal Palace defence. So it's small factors here and small different things if I do play the chip. But this is the sort of thing that makes or breaks a free hit. Like if Vandenberg gets a 15-pointer, then all of a sudden this was the better combo. So you do still need to think about these combinations. So I'll leave it there. I'd love to know what you think of the free hit draft here. I'd love to know what you think of playing it. Let me know if you have any questions based on anything else today. And yeah, fingers crossed for a green arrow. And then we're into, remember, a midweek deadline in Game Week 14. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 13 deadline decisions video. Hopefully that has been helpful. And if it has, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. Until next time, which will be the Saturday late morning, early afternoon deadline stream. It's a slightly later deadline than usual, but I'll see you tomorrow for the Saturday deadline stream. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.